It's Kindred Skulls. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined this evening. My name is Gregg Blake, and I'm joined this evening with my lovely and talented co-host. You know what? I'm going to switch up the order tonight, guys. I'm going to mix it up. Nick Olson, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great, man. Heading into the bye week, a couple of wins in a row, feeling good.
Absolutely. Also joined, as always, by Matt Freese. Hi, Matt.
How's it going, Greg? Honestly, Nick, feeling pretty good. After watching the tape again, I feel a lot better about the Panthers game than I did about the Lions game, I have to say. We'll get into that, but it really is a significantly different feeling for me.
I agree. It definitely wasn't as upsetting.
Yeah.
It wasn't as upsetting as the Lions game. I think mainly because of the opponent, that we were facing. I think we have a little bit more respect for. So
and probably it happening 2 weeks in a row, you get a little bit less, a little bit of exhaustion there.
Yeah. By the end of it, we're just numb. We're used to this. This is who we are this year, apparently. All right, we're already doing it a little bit. Let's get right into reactions to week 6. So we won the game. It was a huge one. We built it up here on this pod, and really could not be understated how big it was for us. And we went in there and we took a win. And it was an up and down game. It had a lot of emotions. Once again, my weekly notes were full of negative things that I had to do. I was like, wow, man, did we win this one again? But we did. We won it. And there was a number of reasons we won the game, I think. We're going to talk about it all. I think first off the top, it has to be addressed. We have to finally give him his due right at the top of the show. Let's talk about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was dealing the ball on Sunday, boys. How did you feel about Kirk's performance?
Yeah, I thought Kirk was great. We'll talk about a little bit later about the offense, but really just sharp the whole game, on time, in rhythm. There was a lot of quick game going on, and I think that was part of the Vikings game plan, particularly with Christian Darrisaw in there. But he really was just hitting the receivers as they come. I think you can levy a couple of small criticisms on him, right? There were a couple times he threw short of 6 on 3rd down, but at the same time, those plays are slants, and it's a 5-yard 3rd down, and you want your receiver to win for 5 yards on slants, and you really need them to win against man coverage, because in the concepts, you're not gonna get it any other way in that case. So I wasn't concerned about that. There were 2 missed throws, there was a backwards pass. But other than that, sharp, on time, he led that touchdown drive. He led 2 game-winning drives. He really did, right? He led the game-winning drive for the missed field goal. That was awesome. Yep. Escaped a sack, had a nice run. So really just a clutch performance from Kirk once again, which is the 3rd time we can say that about him this year. Really the 4th time if you count the Bengals game. That's just crazy. He's been great so far this year.
He's been great. He has a great start to the year. Great start to the year. Nick, did you feel the same? I'm seeing a lot of head nodding, so I'm assuming that's a yes.
Yeah, no, totally. I thought this was, there were more high-level plays in this game than for Kirk that I'm used to, and there were also a couple more what are you doing, Kirk plays? The backwards throw comes to mind, although he was hit when he threw that one. There was a play where he threw the ball into, he double clutched, and he wound up throwing the ball into Ezra Cleveland's back, and then realized it was a fumble and dove on it. So it was what are you doing? But and then there was the deep miss to Jefferson, which was a walk-in touchdown. So those ones stick out in your mind a little bit, but at the same time, that the game winner was that was one of the best throws he's thrown in a long time. It was picture perfect. And he had
that throw was
a lot
awesome.
of anticipation. And you could see Thielen, I think, streaking underneath on a crosser, and he's frick this, let's go home. So, and there were a lot of throws like that the whole game. So yeah, good game. I mean, up and down game, but overall more up than down. So really good stuff.
More up than down. And I think that's kind of been the theme for him this year. And maybe next week when we do our bi-weekly awards, teasing that a little bit, bi-weekly awards show, that might come up, just how much more up there has been than down for Kirk this year. And me, I'm quick to pounce when it's an unsatisfactory performance, and I haven't been able to do that all year long. And I think that's a huge testament to him and the way he's playing. We also had a really great game from Dalvin. He was running the ball all over the place. The rushing average wasn't super high, but he had some really strong runs, some clutch runs. He was really keeping us ticking the way that he does. Did you guys notice anything special from Dalvin's performance this week? Nick, before we went on, you had mentioned, he hasn't had the big gainer yet this year. And I think that's really interesting that I still feel like he's making such a huge impact for us. But in years past, a lot of that has revolved around the big play. And, like Dalvin making a big play to keep us in a game or whatever. This year, it seems like he's taking a little bit more of a workman approach. And I don't know if that's health or whatnot. But how did you guys feel watching him this week?
Yeah, I feel like, so philosophically, I think the wide zone scheme trades a little bit of risk of being tackled at or near or behind the line of scrimmage, because you spend so much more time horizontal than you do in a downhill running scheme, gap scheme, where you're running straight at the line of scrimmage. So you trade a little bit of risk of a tackle for a loss or a zero gainer or something for the explosiveness of like a 50-yarder or something.
Can we do a little teaching moment for our listeners a little bit? Talk about wide zone schemes, because this is something that is very popular in the NFL right now. And it's one of those things that I think you hear a lot and you can kind of recognize it when you see it on the field. And it's been around it's come and gone. It's been passé. It's been whatever. But essentially, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially what it is the runner has multiple options that can develop side to side in a run, depending on how the defense attacks the blockers, essentially. And the blockers set blocks based on how the defenders attack them. And then it's the rusher's job to find the hole that opens up.
Yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of complexities that go into it, but the simplest difference is I think downhill gap scheme runs attack. The offensive line shoots off the ball and drive blocks downfield. They try to basically push their man downfield and create gaps. You'll also have a lot of pullers, like in power blocks where a guard will pull and you'll have a fullback in a lead block, and you'll try and like double team up to the second level and you'll try and shoot through that gap. If you think of Adrian Peterson, it was a lot of that kind of downhill running. Dalvin Cook is more of the horizontal. We're not trying to push guys downfield. We're trying to seal them off. We're trying to create a wall. And then as we seal off each individual back, or the running back has a chance to scan and see, as soon as he sees color, he can cut upfield and go. And it's kind of a one cut and go system. So
thank you for indulging me. I just thought that was a cool opportunity to dig into that a little bit.
And it's a lot more complex, but I think the easiest way to look at it is just what's the first step an offensive lineman takes off the snap. If it's downhill, they're trying to move a guy forward, probably a gap scheme, like the Ravens or the Buccaneers right now, and if they're like taking a bucket step, like they're turning horizontally and running and trying to get out in space, and it's a stretch run, that's more of the wide zone. And by the way, every team does everything, but different teams specialize in different things. And the Vikings right now, wide zone team, Gary Kubiak. With Dalvin, we see usually we're trading a little bit of, sometimes they'll get tackled for a 1 yard gainer, but the upside is when you get Garrett Bradbury reaching up to a center and you can have some really explosive plays downfield, and he just has to make the safety miss for it to be a 50-yarder or plus. But his longest gain this year has only been, I think, 23 yards, and that was this week. Before that, it was 17. He didn't even have a 20-yard gain 5 weeks into the season. Part of that is injuries, and also like not just missing games, but also not playing at 100%. But I think offensively, we're giving a lot of love to the offense, and I think we should, because despite the fact that there were some drives that stalled or drives that didn't come up with points, there were 16 drives in this game. 9 of them they got into scoring position. 2 of them, missed field goals, but like nine drives where you get into scoring position, or at least put yourself in a position to put points on the board. That's pretty good, and it's especially good when we're talking about this was a defense that was like second in DVOA coming into the year.
We talked them up so hard.
and we saw that. I thought we saw some really good pass rushes from Brian Burns and Son Reddick. I thought we saw. I mean, they're such speedy rushers. And we saw some really good play from their cornerbacks, even though they're Stephon Gilmore isn't starting for them yet or whatever. I didn't even remember the names, but there was a couple plays where they had teach tape coverage on Jefferson, on Osborne. It was nice to see Thielen break out, but this was a tough defense to run on. This is a tough defense to pass on. So I was really impressed what they were able to do on the ground. Totally
agreed. Matt, let's talk about the other side of the ball a little bit. It was a performance that, I'll be honest with you, I remembered it as a strong defensive performance. That's how I thought of it. And then I went back and I looked at the score. I remembered certain details from the game. I was like, it wasn't, Sam Darnold was kind of fucking up a lot.
So to be honest with you, I think it was a pretty dominant defensive performance.
Okay.
So I think immediately post game, you have the feeling that they kind of let us down a little bit, and that happened at the end of the game, right? I would say the defense did let us down at the end of the game, allowing that long touchdown. Right. But the situation that they were in, I don't think was their fault at all. If you look at the Panthers' first 11 drives, they ran 51 plays and they averaged like 3 yards per play or something like that. That includes the touchdown that they had on the short field, right? So they had to go 18 yards for that first touchdown on the short field after the Jefferson fumble. It's really difficult to put that fully on the defense, right? Maybe you say that's 4 extra points there and they let it up pretty quick, but that's just a difficult spot for any defense to be in. And then so outside of that, the Panthers drove for the 1 field goal. Then you have the field goal they scored towards the end of the game, which was 3 points after our own missed field goal, right? So that's another sudden change kind of situation where you're hoping to get points and you leave them with a shorter field than you normally would. And then you finally have the final drive, which took 2 fourth down conversions for them to get. And then the other points obviously came from the block punt, which isn't on the defense at all. So I think really, if you look at it, the defense had a great performance up until that final drive. And at the point where they need to make 2 miracle plays on fourth down to continue the game, I think that's still a pretty strong defensive performance. And I think it was a really strong defensive performance. Honestly, I think multiple players had flash plays. Like everybody was kind of all over the place. Kendricks had a few flash plays. Barr had a few really nice plays where he shot forward like he was out of a cannon. Like he still has explosiveness. I'm not sure where he's at in terms of lateral movement, but he is still explosive as a player.
It was really great seeing him out there.
Dalvin Tomlinson was freaking dominant on the interior. James Lynch and Armon Watts played great. Danielle Hunter has just some of the most incredibly athletic plays you'll see.
He's teasing tape talk, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get into tape talk.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a great performance. Patrick Peterson played great. Bashad Breeland played great. Like you can't complain about anybody. And the safeties, I mean, it's kind of weird. Harrison Smith hasn't made any
did Bashad go out on Twitter and tell the fan base to eat a dick or whatever?
Well, he didn't need to this time. He didn't need to this time because he played great.
I kind of like that. I'll be honest with you. When it was a couple of games ago, they were booing him because he made a bad play, and he was telling him to keep going. I thought that was kind of dope.
Embrace the heel. Embrace the heel.
You hear it. So
I would say the worst player on defense for us was Cam Dantzler, and that's just because of that DJ Moore fourth down conversion that happened. He was limited and he was shoved into a difficult situation there, trying to get into the rhythm of the game on the last drive.
Yeah. So it's going to be the story of his year, it looks like.
Yeah.
So we had some special teams snafus. Not a great performance there from the special teams. I think, Nick, you had something you wanted to say about the performance overall.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny. We're gassing up the offense and the defense right now, so you would think it was a blowout. And if you look at a lot of the team statistics, Darnold was held to 4.1 net yards per attempt.
He threw it 41 times.
One quick thing on that too. The Panthers had a bunch of drops in this game, but
I wanted to touch
75% of the drops didn't matter. They were short plays where we had guys on those players and it's a gain of 4 or 5, and it really doesn't affect their stats all that much.
Robbie Anderson did have 1 or 2 that probably could have been game changer type.
There were 1 or 2 that were pretty big plays, and they were actually Robbie Anderson. I think 1 was a deep ball, honestly, that might have been against Patrick Peterson or somebody. But really,
the one he got hurt on.
Yeah, exactly. Which he had good coverage on that play too. So it's not it was a good ball placement, and it could have been a catch, I think. But he had good coverage on that play, and it was, the drops I don't think ultimately impacted us too much. But sorry, Nick, I cut in a little bit long there. Go ahead on the special.
No, I mean it's an interesting question. If they looked so good on tape, why did it go to overtime? And I think the 2 answers are: 1, to a lesser extent, it was penalties. They were penalized 11 times for 100 yards. And the second, which, extended drives. And on that last drive where the Vikings defense should have shut them down, there was 2 fourth and long conversions. So like if you're holding a team, you're stopping them on 3rd down twice, but the drive keeps going because they're in desperation mode. I mean, that sucks, but it happens at the end of game situations. I would say though, like special teams was the biggest deal because like Greg Joseph had multiple chances to put this game away. And granted, it was outdoors, there was wind, and the 2 kicks he missed were not easy ones. I think one was like 49 yards and one was like 53 or something. So not like automatic ones at all. But at the same time, like if you have 2 opportunities to miss those, you would hope your kicker would make at least one. If he makes at least one of those, granted, he was, I think, 3 of 5 total on the day. I think 3 of them were really easy though. Kind of a below average day for your kicker. That sucks. That's part of the reason it goes to overtime. And then obviously the other big glaring mistake was the blocked punt return for a touchdown. Like it's very hard to win games when you have a punt blocked and returned for a touchdown. That's just, it's like winning a game when you throw a pick 6. It's just like catastrophically bad. And it was a bad mess up. I think whoever, it was like a backup running back. I forget, it was 54 maybe, like forgot to block the guy coming up the middle, blocked the wrong guy. So I'm sure he got an earful after the game. But yeah, that was pretty bad. There were some other like errors. D.D. Westbrook has been kind of up and down as a returner. Bobbled a punt, didn't fumble it, but like I don't know, he's made some strange choices. So. Special teams in this, I think in DVOA, like the Vikings were above average in special teams DVOA, and now they're back to being like 2nd worst. So
yeah, 2 weeks ago they were above average, and now they're 30th or whatever.
Not the way you want to be trending.
That does a lot of damage and is part of the reason why we had but I'm okay with that because like going forward, I think you don't expect to give up a punt block return for a touchdown every week. But what Kirk Cousins is doing, what not Patrick Peterson, sadly, but like Bashaud Breeland bouncing back, like Armin Watts breaking out, what we're seeing from a lot of these defensive players, Anthony Barr being healthy again. I think KJ Osborne's breakout, I think all that stuff can be sustainable and lead to future success in a way that like blocked punts will probably not, or like 100 yards of penalty yards will probably not continue to manifest down the road.
Right. Okay. So like you said, Nick, to borrow your word, we gassed up the offense. We gassed up the defense a little bit. Realistically, though, there was a close game. And one thing that I noticed, and I'm sure you did too, both of you, the Panthers were struggling. And in particular, they were struggling on offense. And in particular, Sam Darnold, to me, appeared to be having a really rough day. And we talked about this a little bit last week. Which Darnold are we going to get? We got the cold streak Darnold. And, how much did that contribute, do you think, to, realistically, they had 6 or 7 straight drives where they did very little. And there's not a lot of football teams that we're going to play this year that are going to have that terrible stretch. There's going to be some teams, especially coming up, and we'll talk about that later, but there's going to be some teams this year that they're not going to give us that kind of luxury. What did you guys notice from the Panthers this week?
Yeah, so I thought Sam Darnold was poor. Like, I didn't think he was good. And there were times where he's under pressure, especially, and he was just sailing throws left and right. Like, he was missing things. But at the same time, the Vikings defense was forcing those results. I think our defensive line did a really good job of getting pressure on him. I think we were beating the Panthers offensive line pretty regularly. And I think our coverage was generally pretty good and sticky. I think that bared out when I watched the tape. So it's a little column A, a little column B, right? Because Sam Darnold did not play well. He did not execute what he needed to do. But at the same time, the Vikings kind of forced him into that. Now, that's kind of the player we know Sam Darnold to be, right? Remember the famous line last year, you're seeing ghosts in the Patriots game because they blitzed the hell out of him. And he didn't have answers to that.
NFL did Sam dirty, man.
Better quarterbacks will probably have answers to that. And, they're going to score more points offensively, right? And that's where we need the offense to step up. I don't think you can expect, to hold your opponent to very little offensive production in every game. Like, that's just not realistic.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Now it's time to talk about the offensive line. All right. This is becoming a permanent segment. It might as well be. we got to check in with the line. Was this our best performance of the year?
I would still say Seattle probably still sticks out in my mind.
Okay.
But I mean, there was a lot of encouraging stuff. There was some bad mistakes. Like anytime you're dealing with speed rushers, I think the wins will be impressive, but the losses will also be like they can be disastrous. Like Darisaw overall, I thought had a really impressive performance, but his worst rep of the night or of the day came on that fourth quarter, what should have been the game-winning drive in the fourth quarter until Joseph missed the game winner. And Burns just like dusted Darisaw with a ghost technique, which is where you fake a long arm and then you duck under them. And it's basically like Von Miller's very good at it. You just like sort of like blink past the guy. You kind of dip around them and like you're at the quarterback in under 2 seconds. It's
and
like
the
crazy.
Offensive lineman literally does not get a hand on it.
No. It's insane. And when it's done well, it's like, it's so impressive. And anyway, Burns is like a freak athlete, like just a freak. And so he's able to basically just duck under and rip past or bend past Darisaw. And he gets to Cousins. And that should have been a strip sack and likely could have resulted in the Vikings losing, because then the Panthers would have been in field goal territory with less than a minute left. So if Kirk Cousins doesn't fumble the ball, amazingly, Burns goes for the strip sack and Kirk like senses it from his blind side and holds on and then runs downfield, and then Brian Burns realizes it and chases after him, and then Kirk breaks the tackle and gets like 12 yards. Like, who is this guy? And what has he done with Kirk Cousins?
Brian Burns tackle this week. That's crazy.
Exactly what you would expect. So that's what I think. Like there was another occasion where I think it was Hassan Reddick going up against Brian O'Neill, who's our best lineman, and he just like destroyed him on a spin move, like immediate pressure, got right in Kirk Cousins' face. It was like a 3-step drop or something, and there was still immediate pressure. Mm-hmm. But so like when the mistakes were bad, they were glaring. Bradbury had also like 2 really ugly pass losses, and then Udo had a million holds as he's kind of becoming accustomed to, just because like when you put a dude that big with like arms this gigantically wide, it's really hard to like punch and like keep your arms. So he has this bad tendency to grab onto guys' shoulders just because he's huge. And so I think that's something that's going to keep happening, but he can be okay, but that's going to be something that I think he's always.
Let's ping it to Matt for a second. What was your feeling about the offense?
Yeah, I generally think the same thing as Nick. I would definitely say that the Seattle game was better than this. I think Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offensive architecture, I kind of alluded to that earlier, did a very good job of helping. Brandon Thorne on Twitter, Brandon Thorne NFL, has a film room that he puts out. He's the best offensive line guy online. Like I trust his stuff entirely. He did something on all of the rookie tackles. And talking about Darisaw, one of the things he kept harping on in the video is the drop depths for Kirk Cousins, because that's really important for offensive linemen and the offensive architecture in general. Because if your drop depth is short enough, well, you don't really have to do much to protect the edge. If you're dropping to 10 yards, it's a lot harder to protect than if you're dropping to 8 yards. And that the Vikings were dropping very short the entire game. And there were opportunities for the Panthers edge rushers, and this is a great game plan against the Panthers, by the way, because Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns are 2 of the best speed rushers in the game. And they're not really super powerful guys with great counters who can win inside or win with power, right? So if you have these short drops, it helps Darisaw out, who's playing his first game, but it also prevents pressure from happening. It makes their offensive line look really good. And I think they did perform well, given the task that they were up against in this game. I just think that if we go back to maybe deeper drops, we might have questions about it moving forward. So I would say Cleveland was the cleanest of all of the offensive linemen. So I would give him probably the best game. But across the board, I thought they were good. Like they weren't really that much of a detriment to the Vikings in the game. And that's all we can ask for at this point, right. I think so.
And Kirk helped him out this week, which is something that, has not been a strength of his. And all year long, it's been, I'm not quite ready to call it a strength, but he's been doing things that he hasn't been doing in the past to help these guys, move in the pocket and make plays.
The scheme, Kirk helped them out a lot by the drop depth and by his pocket presence, but the scheme helped them out a lot too. And it's not just the drop depth, although that's huge, because like if you're Christian Darrisaw blocking Brian Burns when Kirk is going 8 yards back, monumentally different than blocking Brian Burns, when Kirk is dropping 10 yards back. Just like, there's so much more grass you have to cover very quickly. And you're also opening yourself that much more up to inside counters, which is when you're a rookie like Darrisaw is, and you're struggling with being consistent in your pass sets and your depth and knowing exactly like which blade of grass you're going to like set your feet at when you finished your set, it can get tricky. So they help their offensive line a lot. A thing I've been pondering, I'm munching on a little bit is the offensive design is playing very scared of the offensive line. I think they're a little scared of the pass protection. I think they're doing a lot. I think we saw a lot this game. There's a lot of smoke routes, a lot of one-step drop, boom, hit the screen, and it worked. I mean, Thielen got like an explosive off of it, and Jefferson had a couple big gains as well. But like Cousins' average time to throw this game was like 2.2 seconds. That's like lightning fast. So, and that's the average. Like, obviously we had a couple deep shots in there, but like, there's so many 3-step drops, 1-step drops, and the occasional like play action boot or whatever. But like on average, you had the 4th fastest time to throw, or 3rd fastest time to throw of any starting quarterback. So, and I wonder if we're getting a little bit too much into the John DeFilippo era where they were passing so much so quickly and it kind of neutered the offense. I think we were still able to see some explosive this week, but I wonder if I would like to see more intermediate shots and less quick game and less. I would hope, especially now the Darrisaw's in the lineup and they're no longer having to protect Rashad Hill, maybe after the bye, they'll start to open things up a little bit more because I don't think I think you can overprotect your offensive line. I don't think, there are times where like the Browns where you want to be very conservative with it when you're up against Myles Garrett. And then there are other times I think where you can accept being under pressure on 1/3 of your dropbacks if it means you're also, your average depth of target is farther than 5 yards downfield. So offensive design helping the offensive line a lot. I think that's why like when you see Brian O'Neill has like, 2 pressures surrendered on the year, like O'Neill's been good, but like the design is helping all of them. And because he's the good guy, he looks the best. But I wonder if hopefully with Darrisaw replacing Hill going forward, they can start to move things up downfield.
I think all that is great to hear, and I agree with you that obviously we don't want our offense to run on quick stuff all year, but I do feel
they're good at it, and Kirk is awesome at it.
We found like something this week.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe that's what's going to make us work this year. Obviously it would be great if we could just bomb it all day, but it's good. It's good. So guys, are you ready? Are you ready for tape talk? One of these days I'm going to figure out a system to get a little sound segment there, maybe some tape graphics. Talk. I don't know. We'll do some tape talk.
Let's get the drops.
Let's get
the drops.
I want an actual whiteboard for us to draw on.
I'll buy a soundboard and we'll do it right. All right, let's kick it off. Who wants to start? Raise your hand. Who wants to start?
All right. Do we want to start with Danielle Hunter? I think we can.
That's verbally raising your hand.
We can both get on Danielle Hunter. So Danielle Hunter, I mean, the dude's an alien. Like, it's ridiculous. There were 2 plays against Taylor Moton.
So last week we have the Spider-Man. This week we've got the alien. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so one's an RPO and the ball gets out really quick. And actually, I think this is one Barr tips. It's like almost the same interception that Eric Kendricks got last week. Barr could have had on this play if he catches the ball. And Moton is jump setting Danielle Hunter, and Danielle Hunter just like he like warps around him.
What's a jump set?
A jump set. Okay, excellent question. A jump set for an offensive lineman is in pass sets for offensive linemen. Usually their first step is backwards to get depth, especially for offensive tackles, to prevent a rush around the edge. A jump set is when you move forward and attack the player you're actually blocking to try to get your hands on them early. And Moton, like, I don't even know if he touches Hunter in this. And then just like his acceleration to get at the quarterback is frightening. I would be very, very scared and curl up into a ball if Danielle Hunter was turning the corner and running full speed at me.
It's like scary. It's like He varies the pace and the explosiveness off the get off. So like when he actually raises his power level to 100%, it's like, holy smokes, who is this dude? He'll like, it's like, you know, that clip of Myles Garrett like crossing the face of the guy, and he's like gone in a blink. It's like, that's the freakishness.
Yes.
Like, when he goes 100%.
Those muscles are not
it's him and Garrett. Those are the guys that do that. It's him and Garrett, like that, and Aaron Donald, I guess. But that's like it. Like in terms of that kind of suddenness and like acceleration for people that size, like it's frightening. And then the other play, and they're both like at midfield too, so they look like almost kind of the same play when you put them back to back. But he is, rushing against Moton again, and he doesn't quite get there. But he literally it looks like he like force pushes Taylor Moton out of the way, like he launches him off of his feet. And Moton gets ragdolled onto the ground. Like it's a ridiculous amount of strength.
Is he a Jedi or is he an alien? You got to get this. Well, I guess he could be.
Well, Jedi are technically aliens.
That's true. You're right.
Yeah, there we go.
It's a galaxy far, far away.
I was trying to make a joke, and you guys have undermined it correctly immediately.
Yeah, by being right. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
You can't out nerd us on Star Wars, Greg.
I don't know. Maybe. What else? Tell me more about Danielle. I'm enjoying this. What was another big play you noticed from him this week?
He's got this crazy move where he'll slow roll the get off, and then he'll do this very violent uppercut into like the lineman's like armpit, and then with his offhand he'll grab their outside hand, and he'll yank it down, and then he'll like swing himself around that way. And it's like a very unorthodox move. I'm not sure there's a name for it, but he did it last week for a sack, and we'll
call it the alien.
No, it's the hyena leap. Nicknamed it the hyena leap already.
He does these crazy things because like, not only is he like a 99th percentile athlete, he's also like 99th percentile in his body type and his size. Like he's like freakishly like basketball long limbs and arms. So he can just do a lot of really crazy stuff.
But those long limbs, he still comes with a giant trunk too, which is the craziest part of it. I mean, he
can win with pure speed. He can win like with a long arm with power. He can like speed to power. He can like reverse inside. So he's just, I don't know. He does a lot of things that other pass rushers couldn't dream about doing just because he's that talented.
He's a lot to handle.
It's fun to see him. For so long, he was like just kind of an athlete learning how to play the position. So now that he's 26 and like a veteran, it's really awesome to see him like come into being not just an athlete, but being a technician too, and doing this crazy stuff. Taylor Moton's a really good tackle. It just got paid. So it was a like kind of Clash of the Titans battle. It was very awesome seeing Hunter doing what he was doing on Sunday.
It's great to have him back. All right, so we gassed up the offense, like we said earlier. We gassed them up, but there are some criticisms to make. You touched on it a little bit already. JJ had a big fumble, which felt like a game loser early on. We missed Kirk missed a deep ball or two. Matt, I think you had some things you noticed about the offense being just a little.
Yeah, so there are really a handful of plays in this game where the offense is just tick off. I think the Justin Jefferson deep ball was the first one where Kirk misses that. That was a really cool route concept. It's a corner post, so he's faking going in the corner, and then he runs to the post with outside zone action. So it's kind of a throwback for Kirk. So you really think that the play is going the other way, and it really tricks the safety. And Kirk just throws the ball long when he needs to throw it short or flatter, and he just misses it. He was kind of hit his throw, and he was pressured a little bit. And actually, they came back later in the game, and they hit the play to Thielen. So they came back to that play, and that was awesome to see them coming back to the same play that worked earlier, and they got it to work this time. Kirk made the adjustment, and he made the better throw. I think that's a really encouraging sign just for the offense in general. The one Dalvin screen, I think everybody remembers, where Hassan Reddick made the tackle in the backfield. Great play and great heads-up tackle by Hassan Reddick. If one of the four offensive linemen blocks Hassan Reddick on that play, that goes for 50 yards.
He had a convoy ahead of him.
There was absolutely nobody. It was another outside zone action, so it's kind of like a throwback screen, and the entire Panthers secondary is on the other side of the field. They're like on the other side of the hash marks. It's crazy. Another play, it was a third down play actually, and this is the one you mentioned earlier, Nick, where the ball slipped out of
before you continue. Yeah. I always wonder moments like that where the disaster doesn't happen, what that must feel like for everybody involved with the defense on the other team. Just like, or on our team when it happens to us, like it's got to be such a relief mixed with terror. Like we almost, gave up this.
I know on that play, Hassan Reddick's hyped, and I think the hype for Hassan Reddick is kind of infectious, right? Like the hype for your guy making the play. Right. The play caller might be a little terrorized, but I think the players on the field are pretty hyped for their guy. Sure. But so that play where Kirk threw the ball into Ezra Cleveland's back, and I don't think it was a fumble. I think I got rolled a forward pass, but whatever, it slipped out of his hands. They actually did a really cool thing because they went to 4 strong and they quick snap. So you can see them in the all 22, get up to the line, snap the ball like immediately. And what I mean by 4 strong is you have 4 eligible receivers on one side and 1 on the other side. That's an uncommon formation that the defense has to check to. So the point there is to go quick to prevent the defense from checking or to try to catch the defense off guard.
So you have a free uncovered guy, basically.
It does catch the defense off guard. They run what's called mesh sit. So mesh is 2 receivers crossing in the middle of the screen, and then sit is a curl route on top of that. So it really puts the linebackers in conflict because they're supposed to work on the crossers, and then they also have the guy up the middle, and you can just throw the ball up the middle.
Madden fans this year are very familiar with that play.
Yeah, if you play Madden, you should probably run mesh on offense, actually.
And you'll have it run against you if you play the AI.
Podcast listeners are missing my very helpful hand motions.
Yes.
Very essential.
Right over the top.
I mean, it's a stable area concept. It's really just a great play. But what happens on this play is 2 players follow the one guy on the crosser, and KJ Osborne is wide open over the middle. There is nobody. Like, it's a massive void. There's nobody there, and that's who Kirk wants to throw to. To be honest, I don't know why he tries to pull it. I think he should just release the ball and make the throw, but he doesn't, and it doesn't happen. The other one was actually on the final drive. We could have been in much better field goal position for Greg Joseph's potential game winner if the wide receiver screen to D.D. Westbrook hits. You have both Oli Udoh and Brian O'Neill releasing. We ran it actually directly into a blitz. That's the perfect time to run that kind of screen. And a defensive back literally just runs right, like he splits Udoh and O'Neill. If one of them picks him off, D.D. Westbrook has a ton of room to run, and it's probably a 20-yard gain before somebody catches up to him at least. And that is a much easier field goal to just end the game right there. Mm-hmm. So just so many plays that were so close that I really think was kind of the difference in the game. It wasn't the difference in the game because we ended up winning, but it could have been the difference in the game, or it's why it was so close.
If we had lost, this is the conversation we'd be having. Like, JJ fumbled and all these plays that didn't work. But the reality is, overall the performance was very strong. But we got a nitpick. That's what we're here to do. Let's go back to gassing. Okay, let's talk about the player that we're all very excited for this year. I would call this, if not a breakout performance, it certainly is on the verge of what you would call a breakout performance. When the year started, our guy was supposed to be Irv Smith. He was supposed to be the 3rd option on this team. You expound all this energy as a defense, watching where JJ and Adam are all day, and Irv Smith runs underneath you and just kills you all day long. That was the dream. It didn't happen. And there was a lot of fear about where we're going to find that 3rd option. And none of us ever considered the complete dud rookie from last year, KJ Osborne. So let's give a round of applause for our man, KJ Osborne, showing up this week, making plays all day long, game winner, walk off, rips his helmet off, does the whole deal. Most iconic image of the year. Tell me about KJ, and I want to hear from both of you on this. How are you feeling about KJ? I know you're both feeling really good.
I'm excited. So I actually just released a full article. I went back and rewatched every snap.
On zonecoverage.com.
Yeah, zonecoverage.com. Check it out, or just follow me on Twitter. It's my pinned tweet right now, @NicolsonNFL. But yeah, I went back to rewatch and see, like, what does he do well? Is this kind of just a fluky streak he's on? Is he going to come back down to earth, like, we've had a lot of guys like breakout wide receivers. There were some pretty dark days back when we were like talking about Charles Johnson as the best wide receiver on the roster, which Norv Turner said back in 2014.
He's Randy Moss in practice.
So you never know if these guys are going to come back down. So I went back, looked at his traits, see what he does well, what he doesn't do well. And there's a lot of really good stuff here. I think the most impressive thing about him is how good he is at the catch point. I think this was the best highlight there is that fade route he ran against Cleveland, which was, I think we talked about it last week, or 2 weeks ago, but like, it was just a fade route. Kirk throws the ball up. It's an option. It's a weak side option. So Kirk just takes it because he sees Osborne's one-on-one and in coverage and doesn't have safety help, which is like, that's awesome that Kirk is willing to trust Osborne, because usually that's a call they make when it's Justin Jefferson lined up one-on-one or Adam Thielen lined up one-on-one against press coverage. So, and he goes up there, makes the catch, turns around, finds the ball. It's a little underthrown, so the defensive back has time to get back and contest it really strongly. But Osborne makes the catch along the sideline. So that was really impressive. He doesn't have a drop yet. He's one of 7 receivers this season with over 20 catches and without a drop. So really good hands,
That's
not
impressive.
just the contested catches, but really good hands. He's got a good release off the line of scrimmage, and he's got a different like package of releases. He's got good choppy footwork coming off the line of scrimmage. He's really good with his hands to clear press if he needs to. You kind of think of him as a slot receiver, but he's lined up 40% of his snaps on the outside too. So that's really
he's kind of stocky for a slot receiver too, which I like. He's a little thick.
He's an interesting build. So he's 5'11". He's the shortest wide receiver on the roster right now, but he's also the heaviest wide receiver on the roster right now. So like Thielen, Jefferson, all these guys, very different body types. They're taller, but Osborne is heavier. He's like very dense. He's very strong. You see that especially after the catch. I think it was the Seahawks game. He kind of like lowers his shoulder into this guy on the sideline and like just like trucks him downfield. He has a lot of that stuff. I think there was Cardinals game early where it was 3rd and 24 and somebody tries to tackle him and they actually do wrap their arms around Bengals around his hips, and he like just manages to break the tackle and run downfield. He's not necessarily like Jefferson's kind of a make you miss kind of guy. Dalvin Cook's kind of like incredible contact balance guys just kind of glance off him. Osborne's more just like more Alexander Madison, more just like he's got a lot of like lower leg drive and power, and he's going to be able to like burst through guys. And that also gives him a lot of versatility because they kind of use him a little bit like a Cooper Kupp type, where like you can line him up right off the line of scrimmage, and he can down block on defensive ends and linebackers, and you can trust him to hold up a little bit, even though he's like 60 pounds lighter than these guys. So he does a lot of dirty work. He's willing to get in there in the run game. He's still developing, I think, his routes. I'm not sure he's ever. I would say he's not traits wise. He's kind of below average when it comes to his explosiveness out of his breaks. Although I think you can also like work on that. And because I feel like he's a lot better now than he was in college. So he's developing. He's just a sophomore.
He's put in work. It's very
He's
clear.
only 24 years old, but like he's a legitimate, like, I'm not going to say he's like a Pro Bowler, but like we saw this with Adam Thielen, where like he was like a special teamer, and it was kind of a cool story. All this local Minnesota boys like now making the special teams play. And then he was like a rotational guy. And then there was a moment where we were like, this kid's actually really good. And he just like keeps getting better. Like, I think Osborne has a lot of those same traits. Like he's fast enough. He's good enough. He does a lot of good things. So really excited about what he brings to the offense.
Absolutely. Matt, you've been seeing a lot of the same. Do you have anything to echo there?
Yeah. The one thing I just want to emphasize is I think Kirk very much trusts KJ Osborne at this point in their career. The one play Nick was talking about earlier where he went vertical down the sideline.
I don't know if you realized it, but you both used that word. So that definitely seems
where
to be clear.
That's an alert, and the quarterback has to trust the wide receiver to make the play on that ball, or he's not going to throw it. And the fact that we're running those with KJ, well, like we can run them with 3 wide receivers now. I don't think there's many teams in the league that can say that.
They run, not to cut you off, Matt, but they run a lot of plays designed to go to KJ. Like there's a jet sweeps designed to go to KJ. Yes. There are a lot of RPOs that are designed to go to KJ Osborne. That's what we didn't see a lot of plays designed to go to Chad Beebe or Olabisi Johnson. They were just kind of there for the ride. So, I mean, it's 6 games in, and he already has the most yards by a Vikings third wide receiver over the last 5 years. Like, so we've been pretty starved for talent, but it's awesome to see a guy that like Kirk trusts, that Kubiak trusts, that they're willing to like actually rely on for production on key downs and stuff. So awesome to see.
I think his strongest asset is his sneer. He's got a very good sneer.
Yes, he does.
he had that dig. He just like breathed in the moment immediately.
Yeah.
Like This is the walk-off. I got it in there. I'm going to throw my helmet off and mug the camera.
Welcome to the big show yet again, actually. That's the second time I've said that about him this year. Excellent. I feel like we've covered all the good stuff from week 6. We don't have a game next week. We got a bye week coming up, a little bit of rest. Everybody gets to catch their breath from this wild start to 2021. So you're Mike Zimmer, and you have to send out the communication to the team this week. All right. Hey, everybody, here's the state of the team. XYZ, What do you think the main topic is? I have some ideas for what I think the main topic of discussion would be around Minnesota, around the facilities. What do you both, I'd like to hear from both of you. What do you think the main topic is?
To me, it's details and execution. I think that's where we're not quite putting every single piece together, right? I think that's what we've talked about with this team is nothing ever feels fully in sync. And we saw that in that last game. You have a few more details that go right. You have a few more small things that go right, and that compounds into a really, really good football team. We're just making a lot of mistakes right now, and the
wins feel a little dirty.
I think that's the number one message. And I think with the 2 sloppy wins that these past 2 weeks, I really think that reinforces that just from a team perspective.
Totally. Nick, how about you? What would you? It's okay if your answer is the same. What would be your?
I would say the message is coffees for closers. Right now, this team needs to learn to close games. This has been Zimmer's MO ever since he got here in 2014, as he grinds out close wins. But there's never these blow-ups at the end. That's not like a Zimmer thing. He would cruise to a 20-10 win, and it would stay 20-10 for the entire fourth quarter or something.
And we'd shut down the Aaron Rodgers Packers.
Yeah, and so I think Zimmer is going to look at the coaching details and figure out what do we need to do to close out games. Zimmer's not necessarily I'm going to drop a 50 burger on you to keep you out of the game, but he's going to learn how to close these things out, not let up these 4th down conversions late in the game, not break contain on the pass rush. A lot of these little details. There's going to be more of the how do we game script the third quarter to make sure we're continuing to produce in the second half of the game. A lot of that stuff. So coffees for closers. We don't. Nobody gets anything until we close these things out and learn not to make the mistakes. So that's been a staple of Zimmer. So the fact that that's not this team this year so far, I think means it's going to be something they're going to learn how to fix.
Yeah. Next time you drop that line, though, you have to do the entire monologue. That's the rule.
Alec Baldwin
on the show. Yeah, exactly.
Glenn Ross.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. Those are both huge things. I think closing the games is obviously, to me, one of the biggest things. I would also say this isn't necessarily on the players so much, but I really want to see us go for the jugular when we're up 10 points, when we're up a touchdown, when we're up hopefully more at some point here. Don't let these teams off the hook, because that's what we did. And, it kind of echoes what you're saying about closing the games, but this is something that you can resolve much earlier than the fourth quarter. We were in control of that game. We were kicking Sam Darnold's ass. There's a chance there to just drive the ball and don't leave any question marks when the fourth quarter starts. And then we just run the clock out and kill these guys, get them out of here, kick them out. And I think that's a lot of missed opportunities this year in pretty much every single game at this point, where, we have a chance to leave no questions. And that's what the great teams do. You don't leave any question marks. Not in every game, obviously, but, the majority of your games, you're winning and you're not leaving a lot of room for discussion. And I think that's probably something I would say is a topic for Mike Zimmer this week.
I think one of the reasons I'm confident Zimmer will learn to be able to defensively close these things out, if not offensively put teams away with more points on the board, is one of the things that makes Zimmer so good as a coach is if he knows what the offense is trying to do, he does a very good job at shutting it down. The way you put up a lot of points on a Zimmer defense is you make it unpredictable, and you make it so that it's, he'll give up explosives on first and second down where, teams are multiple, like McVay's Rams or whatever. That's because there's a lot of different things you can do. There's a lot of different things to expose. The reason he's so good on third downs, third and long, he knows exactly what your pass protection calls are. He knows exactly how to exploit them. He's able to mad scientist these crazy blitz calls, and he knows who to cover. He knows who what your concepts are you go to on third down and how to take them away. It's the same thing at the end of game situations where the pass rush can pin their ears back and the coverage knows what they need to do. When he knows people are going to attack downfield, he's usually able to come away and take things away. So I really think this is going to be something that Zim cleans up going forward. Did we lose Matt?
Totally agree. Yeah, we just lost Matt for a moment. I want to keep.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Sorry, Matt.
Matt was repulsed by my take.
He hated it. So we're going to keep the show rolling. Hopefully he can get his internet going here. But we're almost finished. So let's try to roll this. Nick, you and I have never done this before. This is going to be very interesting. Just you and
5
I.
seconds of fantasy. I'm 6-0. You are not.
I don't want to go straight to the end. Let's talk a little bit about. So we have the bye week. We've got 2 weeks to kind of rest and recuperate and do all that soul searching that we've got to do. And coming out of that bye week, unfortunately, is no more time to catch our breath. Okay. We've got 4 major games, one of which has division implications. So we start against Dallas. We follow that up with Baltimore, follow that up with the Chargers, who are very hot this year. And then we wrap things up with that divisional game against our hated rivals, the Green Bay Packers. Without teasing too much of our material from later this year, how do you feel about the stretch of games? Obviously, I mean, as big as the Panthers game was, we won it, so now we're still in this thing. These games are huge, right?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, these are the games that will decide if this is it's funny. We're 6 games into the season. I have no idea if the Vikings suck or if they're contenders. If they wound up as being winning the division, would not surprise me. If they wound up going 6-11, would not totally shock me, because this team was a 55-yard field goal away from losing to the Lions, the 0-6 Lions. But at the same time, they were a chip shot away from beating the only undefeated team in football, in the 6-0 Cardinals. So they can play down to their level opponent. They can play up to their level opponent. If it's so in a weird way, I'm kind of zen about it, because this is a murderer's row of teams we're up against these next 4 weeks.
I would use the word numb, but zen is also a good word for it.
Numb is probably better and more accurate. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a team that I feel like I will not count them out of many games this year, just because I feel like they have the potential with their receiving weapons. If they need to claw back from when they're down, maybe the offensive line won't hold up very well, but I trust the quarterback and the receivers to put up points. And Kirk is clutch this year, and I think that's a thing now. And the defense is able to get stops when they need to. They bounce back. And Matt's back. I guess that take was better. So
hey, there we go.
Hey man, welcome back.
Matt, how you feel about the upcoming murderers row of guys on our schedule?
I'm scared. Honestly, it's.
I don't know how we stop Lamar. I'm not sure.
I don't know how we stop Lamar. I think, in all honesty, right? I think we should be dogs in every single one of these games, even home dogs, right? I think the other teams, I think there are about 9 teams in the NFL right now that have legit Super Bowl aspirations, and I think all 4 of these teams make that list.
Yeah, at least 3, and depending on how hot the Chargers stay, they just had a real ass kicking. So who knows how they bounce back. But I totally agree. All 4 of these teams could be. It would not shock me if at the end of the year, one of these 4 teams, or 2 of them are in the big game.
I don't know if I trust Dallas's defense, but their offense is probably the best in the NFL. So, I mean, it'll probably be like last year where it was just a shootout and we'll go to the last drive. But these are all deadly teams.
How many games do you guys think we need to pick up of these 3 to still be in the playoff hunt? Right now, we are a 7 seed, which, who knows by the end of the year. But right now, we're actually in it. How many of these games do you think we need to win? We got to go at least
in the
not 9-8, right?
In the hunt, I would say we need at least one period to be in the hunt. I would say 2 actually makes me feel pretty good about our playoff chances. If we go 2-2 against these teams, we're very competitive, and we're going to be competitive with any team that we play. Now, I think we can be competitive with any of these teams. It wouldn't shock me if we won any of these games individually, but also I wouldn't pick us to win any of the games individually. So that's kind of how I feel about it, if that makes sense.
That's exactly how I feel too. And that's exactly what Nick said when you dropped off. So we're all pretty much on the same page with that. Great minds.
There we go.
Exactly. All right. Awesome. Well, do we have any final thoughts from this week? Anything that was, oh man, I really wanted to mention, someone's performance.
I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think Clint Kubiak has been very up and down. I think he's had some really, really good games and some really, really bad. Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but like some like first year still learning the ropes here. And I think this was one of his really, really good game plans where he knew exactly what this Panthers defense tries to do, what makes them so good, the speed they have, not just the pass rushers, but in the back seven as well, and how to counteract that. How like the run game design to take advantage of that, like the drop depth of Kirk Cousins to assist your rookie left tackle making his first start. They did a lot of really good things. All the screens and the well-designed screens, not just the wide receiver screens, the running back screens, and the downfield shots they designed, like that half rollout boot where they shot across Kirk's body to the other side of the field. Like there was a lot of really good play design in here. I still have like issues with like, fourth down decision-making, second and long run heaviness, stuff like that. But I feel like from a play design perspective, this was really good stuff. So I feel like if Kubiak can keep that up, I have a lot of confidence in Zimmer. Zimmer's once again, he's done it twice already. He's once again the number 1 defensive play caller in the league in terms of third down stop rate. So like, and by the way, like people think the defense stinks. It's like 6th in DVOA and like 6th in PFF grade. Or maybe it's 8th in DVOA, but like it's a top 10 defense by like all the efficiency metrics. So
I know for people my age, it's probably time to stop thinking of defense as being able to. I don't think you have to stop it. Okay, this is going to sound insane, but just bear with me for a second. I don't think you have to stop stop a team from scoring as much anymore to be a great defense. Like, let me finish. Obviously, stopping a team from scoring is the number 1 objective, but the scoring average overall in these games is up. Like, there's no debating that. It's up, it's up, it's up. In college, it's been up for 10 years. We're getting there now in the NFL. A 17-point, the magic number for Mike Zimmer's defense. It'd be nice if we could get that score down there every week. But if you give up 20 some odd points, like that's pretty normal in the NFL now for a defense, even the best ones, on an average week. So, Matt, do you have any final thoughts?
I would agree with that. On average, I think the score in the NFL goes up year over year. I think we're at like 24, 25 points now per game, per team. So if you hold a team to 20 points or under, I think you're doing good. It doesn't need to be 17 necessarily. The one point we talked about, so our special teams DVOA went from 15th after week 5, I looked this up, to 29th after this past week. Awful. We're also 6th in defensive DVOA. Our defense is really good. I agree with Nick. The one final point I want to make is I do feel bad about the Patrick Peterson injury. I hope he's able to come back quick. Patrick Peterson exceeded, I think, what anybody should have expected him so far this year. He's been, I don't want to say lights out, like he hasn't been, an island right out there, but he has played extremely well the entire season.
He ain't washed up, that's for sure.
Not to toot my own horn too much, but there is one Vikings analyst who predicted this bounce back season. I'll just say
there we go.
Yeah, toot away.
No, I think the way Patrick Peterson has played so far was the high end of the range of outcomes you expected, Nick.
I think that's right. No, he's been lights out. So tough to lose him with the hamstring for a month.
Boys,
he'll be back in time for Aaron Rodgers.
Boys, I'm rubbing my hands together because it's my favorite part of the show. It's time for 15
Is it going to be
seconds
this
of
week?
Fantasy. You only get 5 seconds, Matt. You better be ready. 15 seconds of fantasy. Look, we're all in a fantasy league together. We know our listeners don't want to hear us talk about our teams, but we desperately want to talk about them. So every week we set aside 15 seconds to discuss our fantasy teams. Matt, go.
Gregg Superflex, Justin Herbert. My Superflex, Brandon McManus.
Nick, go. Nick, you're done, Matt. Nick, go.
I'm 6-0 and I have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. So, I'm going to win. And I'm going to keep winning.
My turn. You all said I had no running backs, and I'm starting 4 of them this week. So deal with that. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been so wonderful being with you this week. This is Kindred Skulls. Matt, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Fries Football.
Nick, where can people find you on Twitter?
At Nick Olson, NFL.
Excellent. You can find me on Instagram at You've Been Gregg. That's where I do my stuff. You can find us as a group at Kindred Skulls on Twitter. We are available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have a place you'd like to get your pod that we're not, please let us know.
Check out the YouTube channel. We got some good film breakdowns up there. So if you like the podcast, you like our Twitter content, that stuff's up. There's some unique special stuff up there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that we're going to keep that stuff coming.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button. I
wanted to say that.
And in that vein, Matt and I are planning on putting on this Sunday live stream that we've teased repeatedly. We are actually going to do it this week. We're doing it. We're booking guests. We're going to do the whole thing. It's going to be super chill. It's going to be super fun. I think it's a perfect bye-week activity for Vikings fans. Please hop in there and join us. That'll be 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. That'll be on our YouTube. You can find the YouTube channel by searching Kindred Skulls in the search box.
If you're following us on Twitter, we'll promote it. We'll post links, so you'll be in the know.
Yeah. Any last words? I love you, Skull.
Skull Vikings. I love you, Skull.
Good Makes job, it sound guys. Like I love the Vikings when I have more of a love-hate relationship with the Vikings.
The first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, another first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. Oh, another first round corner wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all cheer on behind. And we'll score.